Hey everybody, I am back with a new spoiler review, movie spoiler review. Happy New Year. This is the beginning of a new year, and I figure going forward, because in the past couple of years, the first movies that I usually review for the new year is always like some kind of Disney animated thing. Kind of starting off the year with like a feel good kind of thing. But I figure through the month of January, I should dedicate that for a lot of good animated classics because I figure it's so much that I want to dive into that instead of trying to spread it out throughout the year. I figure like let's not even just Disney animated, just animated films in general. I figure I can just try to get it all in within like a particular month, at least as much as I can. And so the first one I really want to talk about is the classic Treasure Planet, based well, at least it's an adaptation of the classic literature Treasure Island, which has been adapted in many facets. Like the TV show Black Sails did it, Muppet Treasure Island. Yeah, so it's various interpretations of this classic tale. And this one uh, is, I mean, aside from maybe Muppet Treasure Island, this one's highly regarded as one of the best adaptations of Treasure Island, although it didn't do so well at the box office when it was released. Was it released uh, November 27th, 2002? So it was kind of like a Thanksgiving film. I thought it was released in 2001, but I was just a year off. It's fine. It is directed by John Musker and Ron Clements. And get this, because I didn't even notice after all these years, Joseph Gordon-Levitt voices Jim Hawkins. Brian Murray as John Silver, David Hyde Pierce as Dr. Dilbert Doppler, uh, Emma Thompson as Captain Amelia, which honestly, if you've seen this film, this cat like, female uh, is, let's say, there's a lot of young boys uh, uh, coming of age kind of fantasy. I forgot the proper term for it. It's like, when they start to understand the certain feelings, towards the opposite sex. Uh, we got Martin Short as Ben, the robot. Roscoe Lee Brown as Mr. Arrow, the first mate of Captain Amelia. Uh, Laurie Metcalf as Sarah Hawkins, Jim's mom. Uh, Michael Wincott as Scroop. Patrick McGoohan as Billy Bones. So, the way the movie begins is with this, a young Jim Hawkins reading a literal audible book with holographic images detailing about Captain Flint and his adventures and hiding this massive treasure that he managed to pillage from his various exploits and hidden away on this mysterious myth called the Treasure Planet. And nobody knows, but just like any young boy, he's like, oh my God, craving for adventure, and this is like so amazing. And of course, the which it was a kind of like a novelty at that time, where now it's kind of a cliche. Where prior to this movie, it was more so a cliche that and still relatively a cliche, that one or both parents are just dead, and it was like a easy sympathy retriever from the audience. But no, at that time it was kind of like a novelty just to see like, oh, this guy had like a deadbeat dad that we only seen glimpses of in flashbacks, but he is just like a deadbeat. He didn't stick around, leaving his wife and kid alone at a early on in his age. Uh, Now it's kind of like standard, which is kind of boring. At this point in time, it's more unique to see uh, a Disney animated film with, or just an animated film in general, where uh, somebody actually had both their freaking parents. And something like Encanto, which is extremely unique, that aside from the grandfather, the patriarch of the family, uh, Marigold has all of her family. So it's like, yeah, it's nice to actually see something like that, because, you know, it's kind of annoying for that easy sympathy gather by, oh, this young kid struggles to, coming of age story because one of the parents is like absentee or dead. Anyway, so years later, Jim, of course, is, and mind you, this is early 2000s, it's all the rage in a lot of films around this time, where the young kid is into some kind of X Games crap, or they're in mischievous trouble or some sort. So of course he does, even down to the hairstyle. Let's be honest, is if you look at Jim Hawkins, and at least in this film, and you compare it to all the films, at least like that, is more so geared toward movies geared towards kids. A lot of them have that same kind of motif that Jim Hawkins has. So it's like, it was a thing. It's like a time capsule. Sometimes they do those kind of things in movies where instead of keeping it relatively vague so it can remain timeless, you're telegraphing what time period that you're giving these attributes to these characters for. Like, oh, he can be like, he has this like kind of flying surfboard thing. So, oh, of course, you can tell by any surfer or any snowboarder or a skateboarder that same motif, a rebel without a cause attitude, right down to the haircut. So, of course, he gets in trouble. And I gotta say, I want to start with like a huge positives, because I just want to get that part out the way, because I just need just to do it. The animation in this is freaking spectacular. Now, I don't know as to why this didn't do so well in the box office at the time, but the animation style is impeccable. The fact that combining the 2D with the 3D is so seamless, and it's like, I imagine it took a lot of animators a lot of hours just to do what they managed to do in this film. It's just amazing. Nice little blend with that. Also, nice blend between, combining like, kind of like steampunk, well, the whole steampunk motif, whereas basically like, early 19th century, or at least Victorian era, I should say, combined with what they have imagined what the future would be if they just relied on steam power. And honestly, I do, kind of dig the look of steampunk. Now, it's not my favorite type of genre, but it's up there. I'm more of a cyberpunk noir type of guy, personally. Like something like Blade Runner, or, despite the game, Cyberpunk 2077, the world is pretty dope. I just like that, aesthetic, personally. but the way they blend all this stuff is really, really cool. Some might give a dock and a point essentially towards you have like Jim's mom running a diner, and it kind of looks like something you see from any like Muppet Treasure Island. Is essentially like any kind of bar or whatever, and it has that Little Miss Moppet type of outfit she's wearing, combining with like these literal RoboCops coming in, bringing in Jim because he's breaking certain rules, causing like mishaps and stuff, because he's a bit of a delinquent, and it's kind of par for the course because he doesn't have some like male structure in his life. So because yeah, it kind of makes sense. Young boys need their father. Without that male figure in their life, it could lead for them to, because they have no outlet, a positive outlet too, because they're young, they got all this pent up energy, don't have any kind of direction in life, don't know what to do. So of course they end up getting into trouble. So we meet the mom and the family best friend Doppler, who the mom who is kind of at her wits end with the boy, because yeah, she does what she can, but the guy needs like a male figure, and honestly it's not gonna be Doppler despite them having like a good relationship. He doesn't carry that kind of male authority figure essentially. And I love he's not all that funny, but he has funny facial expressions. Like when the cops ask, like, is Doppler like the father? And they're just like, oh, no, no, no. They both like, oh, no, 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 no. And it's like, and the mom's like, ew, no. And it's facial expression, what? Okay, like, okay, you're doing too much, lady. That kind of stuff is really funny. So, later on that evening, as everything's closing up, there's like a spaceship that crashed nearby the inn. It's essentially an inn, and there's this pirate Billy Bones that's coming out severely injured, carrying this chest. Jim is bringing him in, and before he dies, he hands this sphere out of the chest to Jim, and he gives him a warning: beware the cyborg. So then a bunch of pirates start showing up. Doppler and the Hawkins make their escape, and their inn end up being burned down because of these pirates. Now, this is the future. Now, given like Treasure Island, the book specifically, because it's set in a particular time period, of course, it makes sense that they had to run and make an escape because they can't call out for any type of authority to come help, because phone lines wasn't a thing. Hell, it wasn't even like those what do you call those things? I'm blanking on it, but like if, where it's like you send, I guess, like a Morse code or SOS kind of thing, where you bang on those things and like need assistance, stop, kind of thing. I don't even think they were even invented at that time. I seriously doubt it. So they probably have like, yeah, definitely, because they had to send word out via letters and stuff, and carriers, essentially mailmen, to go ride off to deliver the important notes. We're still technically in the future, despite it being combined with, Victorian era type of aesthetics. You have, flying airships. You cannot tell me you don't have any type of communication device to get word out to the authorities, who are literally robots, to come help quickly. But whatever. They make the escape, run to Doppler's residence, and Jim opens up the sphere, which details a map that could lead to the treasure planet. Despite the mom's reservations, Jim really wants to go, and he I guess like he wants this really bad. I guess that not even just a thirst for adventure, but just to find himself essentially. Doppler speaks up for him, stating that it's probably something that he needs to do. He'll go along with him because he really wants to go, but he can fund the expedition and everything like that. But he also see this as something positive for Jim, just to help him mature, give him some kind of directions, don't keep him caged essentially. So if there's a small chance find this, it'd probably be good for him. So essentially, because it's all this kid was like always dreamed about, if we can get it out of his system essentially. So they fund the expedition and hire the Captain Amelia and her services, which they meet the first mate in the crew. And I love Captain Amelia. She is like amazing of a character, and just her movements, and just is mostly Emma Thompson, but the movements and the way she speaks is so like she speaks with authority, but it's like speak. It's like the Teddy Roosevelt quote: "Speak softly and carry a big stick," and she kind of exemplifies that kind of attitude. She doesn't need to yell. She kind of leave that to the first mate. But she get crap done. But I didn't see it when I was a kid. Maybe I did, I just don't remember. But I can see the appeal, because that maybe it's the uniform and that authority figure attitude that she carries is kind of a turn on. So I get it. And it's a gateway. That was a word I was looking for. It was like definitely a gateway, a sexual gateway to a lot of young boys, and maybe a few young girls too. Just that uniform and that like authoritative attitude, like that whole, you will address me as Captain Amelia or yes ma'am, and it's like you can't help but think like, oh yes ma'am. It's like just she is, the way she carries that weight is like very hot. Not furry people, I understand that level of attraction. I get it, but she warns Doppler to keep his mouth shut because she have to hire a crew. It's not her own personal thing. Which as a kid, because I understand better now with understanding a bit of golden age of piracy and the lore and history behind it all. As a kid, I always thought like how, because if you know the story, of course there's gonna be a mutiny. As a kid, I was like, wow, like how can her own crew turn on her like that? But no, this is not her own personal crew. She hired these people because Doppler is funding this expedition. So he hires them. They end up like hiring some crew because it needs a crew to help run the ship. Because there's a lot of twists and turns and definitely some gears that need to be turning that the captain and the first mate can't handle alone. So they need a team to run a ship, but not somebody they really are willing to trust, such as telling Doppler to keep his mouth shut, uh, and leave like this type of info between the four of them, her, the first mate, Doppler, and Jim. So she has Jim work alongside with the cook, who we'll learn to be John Silver. And I love the design of this character, who obviously is a cyborg, which raises alarms for Jim, because he suspect, oh, this is probably the guy. But as Silver points out, there's a lot of cyborgs nowadays, and it's like, given like the design of all these people and creatures, which is very cool, like the individual like designs of each creatures along the background and stuff like that, very cool. So yeah, that vague warning about like beware the cyborg wasn't very specific, because like there's plenty of people that has like some kind of cybernetic enhancements or whatever, or prosthetics. So it's like, you know, it's essentially watch out for the watch out for the white guy, and it's like, okay, can you be a little bit more specific? Or watch out for the guy with a scar, and it's like, watch out for the guy with the blotchy cheek. And it's like, people have blotches on their skin all the time. Like, of course, there's gonna be somebody with blotchy cheeks or whatever. It is not specific, you know. Now, if you said like watch out for the overweight cyborg, maybe then you have a little bit more to go on with. So it's like, yeah, then that's what I'm saying. Me personally, I think they could have been a little bit more detailed. That's way too vague. Overweight cyborg, that'll be a little bit more helpful, so that way Jim has a reason to be a little bit suspicious. But that way his line about like, well, there's plenty of cyborgs out there, and it's like, yeah, but how many of them are overweight? Probably cut that down to maybe half, maybe, but it's still be too bit of a coincidence that I'll come across the first overweight cyborg on a pirate ship, or just a ship in general. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Be a little bit more specific. Anyway, he's supposed to be assisting the cook, who is supposed to be watching him, because he's still kind of like a young kid, probably 19 or 20 at this point. So of course he is, probably going to be in a lot of people's way. And also, since you're part of the ship, you're going to have to pull your weight, which makes sense. This is not like a cruise liner. We're on an expedition. We're on a ship that needs to be, gears need to be moving. People outside so loud. The design of John Silver is very cool. Like I said earlier, it's like the animators like really like worked hard just to get this guy moving the way he does, and it's very, very good. And the voice actor for this guy, like, yeah, that is like a proper, like a good voice for this guy. And of course, yes, it's kind of like a cliche pirate vocal cadence. Now, if you kind of look this up, realistically, pirates don't really talk like, oh, you salty dogs. It's like, technically, they wouldn't be talking like that. The reason we attribute that kind of voice towards pirates is because of, I think, like the first adaptation of Treasure Island in the film. I'm pretty sure it was in color. The movie was in color at the time. And the actor who played John Silver in that first, at least one of the first, adaptations in the film, applied that voice because he had like a particular accent. And so, because he was so good at it, ever since, anytime, like a pirate theme movie or TV show came about, they have pirates generally talk like this. And like, it's kind of a crazy how a good performance kind of spiraled into something that everybody kind of adopted and attributed to pirates, since then. So yeah, it's kind of impressive. Uh, Matter of fact, I want to look this up. What was it? Uh, yeah, it's probably in the 50s. Yeah, I think it was Robert Newton who did that. Uh, yeah, it was. Newton's portrayal of Long John Silver is often regarded as a major influence on the portrayal of a pirate in subsequent years. His exaggeration of his native West Country accent is credited with popularizing the stereotypical pirate speech. Newton has become the patron saint of the annual International Talk Like a Pirate Day. So, a little bit of a fun fact for you guys. Anyway, so while Jim is very suspicious of Silver, uh, they start having this kind of pseudo father son type of relationship while he's watching over Jim. Jim's getting kind of suspicious of the crew because the way they carrying on, which by the way, I love the designs of these crewmates, is, at least a few in particular. Like one who looks kind of like a heavyset dude with bandana and alien dreadlocks, but the head moves and the locks are actually legs, like octopus legs, and the body is like a separate entity all of its own, and they kind of work obviously in tandem with each other. And it's like I thought that was like a cool design and a kind of funny moment. Is like, who you looking at? Head, crawls away, and the it's like, yeah, who you looking at? This is very funny. Um, and then this arachnid looking creature named Scroop is getting in Jim's face. Silver shows up, puts Scroop in his place, tells the crew just to back off, and then decides to put Jim through his paces because obviously he's planning something, but he needs Jim to not nosing about, so he's gonna work him to the bone until so that way he is too tired to go snooping. But in the throes of all that, teaching them how to tie knots, scrape barnacle off the ship, which there gotta be some kind of space barnacle or something, because how you get barnacle in the middle of space as the ship is flying in space? Which, by the way, cool designs on the ships. It's like I said, I mean, the animation is really cool. I really dig the animation style of, like, at least anytime they use that kind of same style like they do in Treasure Planet, I'm always impressed. I love that design because I miss 2D animation, because we don't always get those anymore. It's always like relying on 3D animation, which is, in my opinion, kind of a crutch. nowadays. But if you get to combine the two, I'm really impressed. Now, I love my 3D animation, stop motion. I love all types of animation. It's like in terms of like filmography, at least film science, if that is a term, or science behind the film industry, animation is my personal favorite. I can watch like a documentary behind like the ins and outs of animation. It's really, especially as a voice actor like myself, I like just I nerd out when that kind of stuff personally. So we see, and oh, by the way, there's like a montage, of course, but it's a like a song number, like some kind of crap. I don't even know what you call it specifically, like not a score, but it's like a this is what needle drop. I think that's what it's called. Some kind of rock ballad, something. I don't know. I'd never heard of them before. It's only one song, and thank God it didn't have none of the people there in the movie doing like a song and dance number, because it's not that type of film. But at the same time, I also think that this movie did not require. It's one of those things. It's like, I think this is just me personally, but I don't think this movie requires any music outside of like the general score or background background score, not music, but just the score, just to amplify just the tone of the scene that we're watching. I didn't care for this rock song, or even if you want to call it a rock song or whatever. I didn't care for it. Don't think this movie needed it. And it could just have just a general montage with just general a generic just musical score. That would personally work just fine. Anyway, we get to see a relationship budding between the two. Excuse me. Where Jim's essentially getting what he's been sorely needing, which is like a strong father figure, teaching him how to do certain things to make him a capable person on like a ship. Excuse me. And which is like something that you can see that this is something that young boys need. Strong father male role models. Now, of course, as we know, Silver, not exactly the best role model, but in general, a role model. Depending on your point of view of how good or bad he is positive neutral of a male role model. And one day, Jim overhears Silver talking amongst the other crew about because they suspect him going soft on the boy, and of course, being a pirate, not a good look, and that you are appearing as soft. It's not even just with pirates. It's always been a thing when it comes to like gangs or just criminal element in general. If you're working with a crew, you don't want them to perceive you as soft, because you might turn on them or you might hesitate. Anything that could have the crew turn on you because you then become a liability. So, but of course, he likes Jim. He grown, more fond of Jim than he thought he would, seeing him as like a son. So, realizing Jim overheard the conversation, Jim runs toward. Oh, I kind of skipped over this. The ship is getting caught up in some type of maelstrom that's going to drag him into some type of black hole. Thanks to Doppler helping with the steering, Screw ends up causing the death of the first mate. And ends up blaming Jim, who wasn't tying the knots properly. And of course, Silver knows that ain't true, but he ain't gonna voice that because they'll give them away. So at least give them away before his time. So he comforts Jim, because at this point Jim is coming to realize the whole adventure thing, like he's imagining as a kid, this crap is real. Life on the on a ship, as life on the high seas, but no, life on a ship, it can get dangerous. People might, at least in the real world, people might drown. At least during the pirate days, people gets boarded by other pirates or suffering cannon fire. There's a lot of dangerous stuff that might happen on a ship. People might die. Here now he's blamed for this, which, like I said, Silver kind of covers him. But now getting back to earlier, once Jim realized, the crew is a bunch of pirates, he, Doppler, and Amelia head to one of the lifeboats. They managed to make an escape, despite Silver having like a good aim on Jim, but he refused to shoot. They managed to make an escape, but Amelia gets wounded in the escape during the escape, and they crash land on a planet that is where their general destination should lie at. While the pirates are trying to make a landing point, the other three trying to make try to find like a good spot to hide out at to recoup. Jim goes to survey the land. He come across Ben, a robot with the acronym standing for Bioelectronic Navigator, voiced by Martin Short. Now I like Martin Short. He's pretty funny. But here, not so much. I don't like his character in this. And honestly, it seems very like shoehorned in, mostly because they're obviously trying to do the whole Robin Williams genie thing, and it seems forced. Now it'll be a whole nother thing, and by the way, he's annoying too, but it'll be a whole nother thing if he was set up at least halfway or getting towards the second act, so that way he doesn't feel, I don't know, like I said, shoehorn in. And he's just annoying. I don't know, like I said, it feels like they're trying to recapture that Aladdin genie moment, and it just doesn't work here. And that's probably like one of my biggest griefs with this film, or at least biggest cons I have against this film. It's like, this character does not work here. Now, of course, he's kind of based on a couple of characters. No, not a couple. One character in the story of Treasure Island, uh, Ben Gunn, who was trapped on the island that the crew ended up coming across that's supposed to have the treasure that they was looking for. So he's kind of based off that. And by the way, uh, Doppler is a combination of two people from the story as well, Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney, while Captain Amelia is based, or at least is like an analog to Captain Alexander Smollett on Treasure Island. Oh, and Silver has this kind of like a pet uh, shapeshifter called Morph, this pink little blob. It was supposed to be like Silver's pet parrot. Now, I think blob was enough or filled the spot perfectly where Ben failed at. You already got a technical mascot here. We don't need this annoying little gizmo. Anyway, Morph also established some type of relationship with Jim. And apparently Ben is, or at least was, the first mate of Captain Flint, the one who hid the treasure. But his memory circuits are all fried, so he goes in and out of information. So that's why he's there to tag along. Eventually, Silver shows up, and not knowing that the kid doesn't have the map, is left on the ship. He makes a deal, but he tries to make a deal with him, but like, oh, we'll work together, but Jim's not having none of that. So he says you have until sunup, otherwise they'll just come and just take it. Which, by the way, they wouldn't have known where their location is if it wasn't for Ben. So dumb. It was like a very useless character, in my opinion. So Jim, Morph, and Ben sneak up back onto the ship to try to find the sphere map. Oh, and by the way, we see this kind of, like I said, this one seems a little forced too, or at least kind of out of nowhere, of a budding relationship between Doppler and Amelia. Which, by the way, a dog and a cat together is mass hysteria. I'm sorry, it's kind of weird. Now, it would have worked for me if it was properly set up, at least better. Because when they meet each other, they can't stand each other. Then all of a sudden, they find each other charming. It's like, that seems so out of the blue. Now, it would help if they were kind of smitten with each other at first, but just didn't express it all that well. But then they do subtle hints. That will probably help a bit. But like I said, that seems kind of like tacked on. Anyway, Scroop gets into a fight with Jim, while the anti-gravity mechanism is disabled thanks to Ben, who is trying to find, I forgot what he was trying to do, trying to reestablish like some type of connection. Hold on. I forgot what Ben was trying to do, but disable cannons or something like that. But thanks to the anti-gravity thing and Jim's quick thinking, he managed to pay Scroop back for the death of the first mate and sent him, flying off into space. So he took him out. He managed to retrieve the map, but Silver captured Doppler and Amelia. So now they open the map, follow the trail, which leads them to the end of a cliff, which on the ground is like a mechanism. Jim places it there and opens a portal. And there's a sphere grid of the known mapped out universe, which explains how Captain Flint managed to ambush and rob and pillage so effortlessly as he has done, because he had this particular mechanism and was never caught. So Jim realized where to go, so they end up going to this particular core of a planet where Flint stashed all the treasure that he managed to pillage. Now, some don't care for this part, and I understand as to why, because at least for me personally, it isn't technically a treasure planet. It seems like you're hiding your treasure inside of a core. And I would have preferred it would have been a literal planet where it's uninhabitable and it's littered with all types of gold and diamonds and rubies and amethysts and all this other stuff. Then it can be a literal planet filled with all this treasure. Now, of course, I guess it wouldn't seem feasible for somebody actually have like a planet filled with all. Well, I would say maybe it's some type of planet that already had, some type of gold laced city, abandoned city, or just, you can literally make a planet that's, mostly, not covered, but basically, architecture that's literal gold and rubies and emeralds and stuff like that. It's just like gold trimming and all this other stuff. Everything. If there would have been like something like Star Wars, where like the whole planet is just like a swamp or a whole planet filled with snow, you can feasibly make a planet just like bunch of treasure there, and just Flint just adds more to it. Then you can literally call it a treasure planet that he was only one able to find. But whatever. So they end up tripping an alarm, and Jim manages to find the skeleton remains of Captain Flint, which he's holding like the memory circuit to Ben, which he managed to reestablish, and Ben's memory is fully restored, and he realized that Flint, trying to protect his loot from anybody who might have found the location, and it's set to explode now. So most of the crew managed to escape. A few managed to die in the, these energy core just erupting. Jim was like holding on to dear life, about to fall into this kind of molten magma. So Silver decides to sacrifice the boat full of goods that he wanted to take in order to save this young boy. Jim. Of course, Amelia and Doppler managed to evade their captors and fly into the portal where they meet up with the others. Thanks to Jim trying to do a callback to him surfing in the air. They do like a makeshift board, and he flies towards the orb, so that way he can put in the coordinates to the that wayward station that they took off from earlier in the film, before the whole place explodes. Because you got to make that make sense with him, surfing on the air. So yeah, he saved the world or saved themselves via X game moves. So they make their way through. Uh, they arrest whoever pirates that they managed to get their hands on, but Silver, uh, is trying to escape via a lifeboat. Jim ends up letting him go because he did save his life. So as is kind of as thanks for that. So Silver gives him Morph as well as a few uh, gold pieces that he managed to grab his hands on, give it to Jim so that way his mom can rebuild what they end up burnt down. So Jim and the others make their way back. Jim now going to be working for the what do they call it? The becoming like a cadet for the Interstellar Academy, thanks to the good word of Captain Amelia. While her and Doppler have this, kids with, three of them, literally a litter, mind you. Three of them like are cat girls and one boy dog. While Ben helps the mom out at the diner. So, Jim managed to, get the adventure that he needs and some direction in his life. And of course, I don't know why he never thought of this before, or at least the mom didn't think of this before, because clearly he wants to go on this kind of grand adventure. So it's obvious he should join like this Interstellar Academy so he can do all this stuff for, but whatever. But that's where the movie ends. And like I said, like despite the few cons I have about this film, this still holds up as a great animated film. I thoroughly enjoyed the animation. Jim was a cool character, but sadly, he's not one of those memorable characters like in most Disney animated films. But he should be. He's kind of very underrated of a character. Him and John Silver and Captain Amelia are very iconic characters, in my opinion, or at least they should be, because they're well designed and their performances are high tier for me when it comes to this film. It's sadly because when Pirates of the Caribbean came out, pirates started to become like all the rage in Hollywood. Almost everybody was trying to do like a pirate thing. And I imagine if Treasure Planet would have came out around that time, it probably would have done a whole lot better in the box office because piracy was like all the rage. But I think it was ahead of its time. And it should give it its fair share of respect of taking part in bringing pirates, the whole pirate thing on the map. But I think it kind of blazed a trail for, or at least crawled so Pirates of the Caribbean could walk. And then Pirates of the Caribbean can kind of pass that baton to other film or TV that's trying to do a pirate theme like Black Sails. So anyway, that was Treasure Island. A very cool animated film. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Treasure Island or Treasure Planet, as well as Treasure Island, if you read the book or seen any other adaptations, what you think. And who are your favorite characters? And and I will see you guys next week for another animated film, which I also haven't seen. A lot of these going to be films I probably haven't seen in a mighty long time. It'd be fun to revisit after all this time. So anyway, I will see you guys a little bit later as I get back to playing some more Marvel Rivals because I want to start learning some Iron Man. and then as well as playing some more Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.